he said that he had all these ice skates in this vacant building.
Molested at a very young age.
And then the ice skates were supposed to be across the street at another building. So he told me to come with him to get the ice skates. Well, of course, I knew what that meant. That meant lying on a dirty mattress. That meant...
Next on The Shon Brown Show. The Shon Brown Show, discussing today's issues and making it personal.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Shon Brown Show. I am Shon Brown and I am your host, and I am so excited because today we're going to be talking about a very deep topic. A topic that has affected so many women, so many men, a topic that a lot of churches don't want to talk about, a lot of families don't want to talk about it, and that topic is molestation. So many women have been affected by molestation, so many men, and we're going to talk about it today on the Shon Brown Show. But even more than that, y'all, I'm so excited to have sharing with me today on the platform, Pastor Tammy. She has started so many amazing ministries, Created for Destiny's Ministry. She's also founded Table Talk with Tammy, where women come from all over and they talk about struggles that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But we're going to talk about it today on the Shon Brown Show. So, Pastor Tammy, when did your nightmare begin?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on, for coming and allowing us to open our home to you on today. This topic is very, very passionate for me because as a molestation overcomer, I like to share my story. So it began at a very early age, maybe 4 or 5 years old.
4 years old.
Yeah. And I can remember, and it's funny because when I do things like this, either interviews or monologues, right before that time of filming, those memories begin to come back. And so I can remember early on being threatened as a kid that if you tell anybody, I'm going to hurt your mom. And just imagine this molester living in your house and buying you Christmas things, nice things for Christmas, and seeing your mom happy and getting a new bike for Christmas and Christmas trees and candy, just the things that most normal kids do, but also knowing that after school, he would show up in a red truck and take you to some most god-awful places and do things that no little girl should ever have done to them. Yeah.
So did your mom know that she...
And I tell people all the time, I am blessed because when my mom found out, it ended.
Wow.
I have friends, women that I've worked with that tell me my mom didn't even believe me when I told her.
Right,
She
yes.
said it was my fault. And I'm grateful that I never experienced that. It was I can remember it like it was yesterday, Shon. We had gone ice skating. Mm-hmm. And he had all these vacant buildings with just stuff in them. And it was me and some of my siblings and some other children that we grew up with. And he said that he had all these ice skates in this vacant building. So some of us were in one vacant apartment, and then the ice skates were supposed to be across the street at another building. So he told me to come with him to get the ice skates. Well, of course, I knew what that meant. That meant lying on a dirty mattress. That meant the smell of Royal Crown Vaseline.
Yes.
It took me years to get past that smell.
Right.
It took me having to really pray and move forward, in my life. But I knew what was about to happen. And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And this went on how long?
Until about 6th grade.
6th grade. So from age 4 years old
to about sixth grade. About 6th grade, yes. Wow. Yes, ma'am, about 6th grade. So she found out that night because the next morning she came to my bedroom. And she said, "What happened last night?"
Just out the blue? What happened?
And I was asleep, and she woke me up. And to this day, my mother's passed on. We talked about it a few times, and then that was it. But it never happened again. And I told her what happened. So I don't know if she suspected something. I don't know if my siblings said, "Hey, it took them a long time to come back with the skates." I mean, I really don't know. I can't say.
Okay.
But it never happened again. And we never saw him in our home again.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So many parents, like you said before, so many mothers,
Yes.
they allow the person to continue to
Absolutely.
be around because they want the man seems like to be more than the children.
Absolutely.
So what was the struggle for you? I mean, 4 years old, so many years.
Yes.
What was the struggle for you as an adult?
As an adult, okay. As an adult, wow, where did I begin? Fatherlessness was the main thing, I think, for me, because we're transitioning now from a little girl to my preteen years, and then you go and you look back and you're like, wow, I did a lot of damage to myself. And the struggle was not having a dad there to rescue and say, this man is doing X, Y, Z to me, and he comes to my school and he pulls me out of class and tells my teacher that I have to leave. And
Was
then
you out of class?
Oh yeah, he would come and say, "Oh, we have to go," or this or
I think
that.
that's the first that I've ever heard of someone saying that.
Yeah. Well, that shows the sickness
Yes,
and the demented part of this individual. But just fatherlessness, drugs, alcohol, wanting to be loved. Boyfriend after boyfriend, just what they say, looking for love in all the wrong places, just wanting somebody that I could share, because at this point nobody else ever knew, just me and my mom. I had never told my siblings, none of my best girlfriends, no one ever really knew what my struggle was really like. So it just kind of ended up leaving me just kind of being like a wild party girl, just out there.
So how are your relationships with other men?
Now or then?
Men, like in your 20s?
Dating was awful. Dating was awful because, again, I was actually looking for a father. Mm-hmm. I think, as I grew up and as I got older, I realized I should not have been dating anyone. My mind was not ready to date, because all I thought was, if I have sex, mm-hmm. I can get the things I want. And I've always liked nice things. That's just who I am. And I was always grown. I was always presented nice things. So if you give sex, you get a gift. If you give me more sex, you get a better gift. If you give me really good sex, you get a really good gift, like a car or something. I'm being so true and transparent here, but that's the way it went. Yeah, so it was just bad. It was just really bad. And like I said, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of partying. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So what got you through? I mean, drugs, alcohol,
mm-hmm.
Having sex with so many men.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you don't look like your past.
Praise the Lord. Yes.
So, tell them what got you through all of this?
Man, listen, I failed to mention early on that we have always mm-hmm. been in church. Mm-hmm. I've always had a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't know, but I know that somewhere in the Bible it says that before I was even fashioned mm-hmm. in my mother's womb, before all this could even take place, he knew me. And even as a party girl, mm-hmm. even as the girl that dated married men, I never stopped going to church. I have never been out of church my whole I'm 54 years old, and I've never, people say I backslid and I left church. I've never, ever been out of church. So I would say it was just my relationship with God, and how, even in some of my darkest places, I always knew he was there.
So you never gave up on God. I've ran into so many women who say, I've tried to pray the struggle off of me. I fasted,
yes.
And they say it's not enough.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to hear the whole religious spiel.
Yes, that's true.
But you're saying that God still can
He
heal
still
you
can.
of all your hurts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for me, and I run into women just as you described. Well, where was he at when I was getting molested,
Yes.
you know? And it's different for everybody. And one thing that I try to do, I don't try to make anybody feel the way I feel. I just share my story.
Right.
I just share my story and let them know that the same God that did it for me, he can do it for you. But one of the things that most people don't like to hear in these type of stories is the F word.
Right.
And that is forgiveness.
Oh, right.
Yeah, not that F word. The F word. I had to learn to forgive a lot of people. I had to learn to forgive my molester. I had to learn to forgive my dad for not being there. Some of the men that took advantage of me, because I had a part in that too. You know, so I had to put on my big girl underwear and look at the big picture and the totality of it. Yeah.
Do you feel that's when your healing took place, when you started to forgive people? Or like, was it a process? Is it something you just woke up? Surely not, but the process of healing, like the time span of healing. How old were you when you feel like you got healed? Or
Okay. Yeah, I think for me it was probably in my mid-30s. Late 30s, after my second failed marriage. Mind you, either of my first two husbands ever knew that I had been molested.
Wow.
So we stood at the altar with secrets. I went into, isn't that something? You can be naked in front of a man, have sex with a man, but they not know your deepest, darkest, intimate, ugly skeletons.
Was your marriage affected sexually? I know some women who have been molested, certain types of touch, certain type of positions can cause flashbacks.
Yeah, right. For me, no. Again, I think that everybody's story is different. So I never was an issue. My issue in my marriages most times was somebody to talk to, somebody to listen, somebody to communicate with. And like I said, they never knew any of that ugliness, you know. So it was after the second marriage that I call it my wild and out years. And man, I was just, now mind you, I'm working for a local PD and I'm doing some crazy stuff. That's how I know for sure God was with me. Just some of the things that I experienced, some of the people that I took company with, the legal things that I was around. But God was always there. And I know he met me in a red truck. And the red truck, yes. I tell people this story. I had the opportunity to share it several years ago at a men's conference at the church I attend, Koinonia Christian Church. And it's just so amazing how God took the memory of this red truck as a little girl where some of the most ugly things happened.
Yes, because he had a red truck too, right?
He had a red truck. He had a red truck. And I still now today have a red truck. It's old. It's a 2001 Ford Escape. But I hold on to it because that's where God met me and reassured me. And one night coming from Dallas, it was a Monday night. I'll never forget. I was off on Sundays and Mondays during that time, and I did my regular Monday routine. Cleaned my house, got ready for the party Monday night, had a few drinks, couple of joints, and headed to the club. Yes. But this particular night, it just started off different because I had done nothing that I don't or normally do. And I get to the club and my friends are there, and I had friends that liked to party, you know, and when we were together, it was a party. It was a good time. Good time. It was a good time. And we were champagne drinkers. So we had champagne, the party was going. And shortly, I hadn't been there very long, but I noticed I didn't feel myself. I love to dance. I'm still a dancer. I can dance too, Shon. But I remember being on the dance floor and just feeling really weird. I remember the room kind of spinning. And I go back to the table and I won't call her name. I was like, hey, sis, I said, I really don't feel good. And she told me, girl, let's take some shots. Now, I already told you I don't feel good, but let's take some shots. Right. Yeah, but she said, let's take some more shots. But I had enough sense to know, no, this is a little bit different. This is not just being drunk or high. It was something different. So I said, well, I need to go ahead and go. Now, mind you, I'm in Dallas off of I-20, and I live in Irving at this time. And all my friends say, well, okay, we'll talk to you tomorrow. And I said, well, wow, what about your friends? They just let you leave.
With your head spinning.
With my head spinning. What about your friends, right? And I remember leaving and making my way to my car in the parking lot. And the first thing I thought was, I can't drive like this. And so there was a little chicken place around the corner. I said, well, maybe, if I go around the corner, and get me some chicken or something, kind of sober up.
And you're in the red truck, right?
And I'm in my red truck. I'm in my red truck. And I go around the corner and I order some chicken. And so maybe if I can eat and soak up some of this liquor and alcohol, whatever was going on, then I could make my way down Loop 12 and try to get home to Irving. So I pull up and just out of my head, Shon, I remember cussing out the man at the window and just talking crazy. And I remember pulling to the back of the building. And I remember seeing a big dumpster. And I said, well, if I sit here and just kind of eat and sober up, I'll be okay. And I did. And the next thing I remember, I could hear like traffic, like in a distance, and I could hear birds, and I could hear people talking, but nobody like in my ear, but in a distance as well. And when I came to myself, I realized that I had been asleep. I had fallen asleep in my red truck. And had been there all night long. Wow. And
but God.
But God.
I'm waiting for the but God moment.
But God, I was thinking, here I am next to a trash dumpster. And I said, wow, God, you're amazing. I said, because the enemy just wanted to throw me away as trash and had me sitting there on the side of a trash dumpster, drunk out of my mind, probably having been slipped something. I don't know, because it wasn't normal. It wasn't my normal Monday night. I knew what I could handle. I knew what I could smoke. I knew what I could drink. But that particular night was different. And so when I woke up in my red truck, I recognized, God, you kept me safe here all night long in my red truck, drunk, out of my mind, probably having been slipped drugs or something, I don't know. But my conversation with the Lord that day down Loop 12 was, if you let me make it home, I'm done. Wow. And I made it home that morning. I remember calling in for work because I had to go to work that afternoon. And I remember calling in from work, and I remember laying in my floor, my bedroom. I had a really nice duplex, and I remember laying in my floor for hours. I went home, took a shower, and just put on pajamas, and I remember laying in my floor for hours, just in a fetal position, just crying out to the Lord, to help me, to forgive me, to cleanse me, to do whatever, it is that needed to be done in my life, because I had done, I tell people, it wasn't always what people did to me. There were some things that I had done too. I wasn't proud that I had affairs with married men. I'll never forget a story. And I was working at the jail, and the guy that I was dating walks in to get his son out of jail, and he's with his wife. And I had to we kind of act like we didn't know each other, And so there's a lot of things that I've done that I wasn't proud of either. But that day, I think that I was done.
So what advice would you give to married people who have been through or who have been molested before?
Okay. Well, the first thing I would do is to say, make sure that you want to be married before, because a lot of times if you're not careful, me, for example, I hadn't even dealt with any of my skeletons. I just jumped into the marriages. So make sure that you're ready for a marriage. And if so, make sure that your spouse knows, and this is for men and women, make sure that your spouse knows, sister, hear me, hear my heart, know that when you and your husband are intimate, he doesn't know if he touches you a certain way that it'll be trigger you to back in the red truck or wherever. He doesn't know, and it's not fair to your husband. So make sure you share your past experience, and also even before marriage, get the help you need. Even if it's counseling through your church, through a professional therapist. Talk about it, journal, do something, get it out so that it won't show up out of the blue in your marriage bed.
I remember you telling me that the first 2 husbands, you didn't tell them that you were molested, but you did tell Matt, which is your husband.
Yes.
Now, do you see any difference, any benefits of telling him?
Yes.
Well,
yes. I think about that often, and how we can stand at the altar with secrets. Stood before with 2 men that I was married. Both of my former marriages were 3 years each. In bed, having sex with these men, and they never knew, and just didn't feel. First and foremost, I hadn't done my homework, so I couldn't really tell. I was still looking for someone just to take care of me, if you will, or someone to rescue me. The difference with Matt was I told him early on.
How did he respond?
Oh, wow. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was living in Irving. Matt was in the military before he retired, and our relationship, we met, dated, and married within a year.
Wow.
Maybe
You've
just
been married how long?
16 years.
So it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And I remember him coming over for dinner. We were going to cook dinner together and watch TV and hang out. And the conversation just got really serious that particular night. And he told me, he says, I don't want you to be my girlfriend forever. And I'm like, okay.
But it went into the past year.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, where's this going? But even before him, because I knew I was falling for him. I mean, he was sweet, he was kind, he was gentle, he was different. He wasn't the cool guy with the Mercedes or the BMW. He was a hardworking Army guy, And I love the fact that he had 2 daughters by 2 different women in 2 different states, but he made sure that they were together.
Right.
He put one on a plane to go see the other, or the other one on the bus, or however. They made sure that they had vacations together. And being a fatherless daughter, that was appealing to me. And so I knew that I kind of loved this guy, and so we sat there on the sofa. But I wanted it to be different. I really did. I didn't want to go down the same path again. I said, well, I need to tell him. I need to tell him what I've been doing these past 4 years, my days on the floor, on my face with the Lord. I need to tell him about my journeying, and I need to tell him about the help that I sought out through my mentors and ministers. I need to tell him, about my past. And so the conversation got a little heavier, and I told myself, there's something I need to tell you. And I told him, I said, I've been molested as a child, and I went on to share just about my wild and out years. And I said, but I wanted you to know that. I said I couldn't go into another marriage without telling my husband, somebody I'm entering into this covenant with.
Or what was
Not at all. Not at all. He never flinched. It never was a moment of, let me back off. Because when you tell people that, you don't know if they're going to leave you, if they're going to stray away or shy away. I didn't know if that was going to be our last date, but I had to go out because I wanted to be honest with myself and him. And I'll never forget it. We were kind of on each ends of the sofa, and I'll never forget how he just slid up next to me close and just kind of pulled me into him and put my head on his chest, and he just said, it's okay. And that was it.
I know that you come from a very spiritual background. Are you for counseling? I know I've talked to some people who've been molested, and they say, I've tried the fasting, I've tried, praying to God, which we know God can heal you out of any situation. Right. But how do you feel about counseling?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a people, as a whole, we've heard, don't tell anybody what happened in our house. What happens in this house stays in this house, and what happens in this house has messed many people up.
Right.
So I'm all for it from the right person. Of course, there are belief therapists, which I am. I don't know if I mentioned that to you before, but I am a certified belief therapist. Professional counseling, your pastors. reach out to somebody, get the help you need. Yes, absolutely. I'm all for it.
So tell us about the ministries, the resources that you have for
Oh,
women.
wow.
You do so much.
Yes.
I mean, you could start at number one.
Okay. We originally started with everything falls under the umbrella, if you will, of Created for Destiny Ministries. So we were founded in 2005, and that's our mandate is just to be there for women, to love on women. That's what we do, to edify and uplift. And we do that through counseling, conferences, workshops. And then under that is Table Talk with Tammy. We do that periodically, and that's an amazing time where women come together and we talk about it. Mm-hmm. Whatever your it is, we talk about it. Right. We come together, we love on you. You can't go to every church and say, hey, I'm struggling with molestation, or I've been raped, or I'm struggling with drinking. Currently, I'm singing in the choir, but I got a problem drinking, So we talk about all of that. And we also resource out to people because I'm not a licensed therapist, so I do know my pay grade, and I stay, where I'm supposed to be. But Table Talk with Tammy, we also do a workshop for women that are new in ministry, or speakers called Hips and Heels in the Pulpit, which you attended several years ago, and that has been amazing. We're actually going to be doing that for a church in Kansas City, and they're going to open it up to other churches for their evangelists and ministers to come, and that's a basic 101. I did that because there were times as a new minister, I didn't have anybody. Right. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. I come from a traditional Baptist church that said you won't be preaching here. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to do that to help other women. What else do we do? Table Talk with Tammy. What's Up Wednesday? Mm-hmm. That falls under Tammy Dozier Unfinished. Mm-hmm. That's one of our pages on Facebook. And every Wednesday night at 8:30 Central Standard Time, we're on. And it's the sister to Table Talk with Tammy, but it's just online.
And so, Death of a Bag Lady too, right?
Oh, Death of a Bag Lady. Yes. Death of a Bag Lady is a monologue. Mm-hmm. We've been doing it since 2005. That's how the ministry started, actually, just by sharing that monologue. And we've been doing it, presenting it since 2005. And it's basically my story. Mm-hmm. And it's my testimony, but it's presented in a monologue fashion. It gets pretty deep. We have been asked to come to many churches, and we've been asked not to come to some churches because it's real, it's raw, but it's relevant. We've been doing that for quite some time. And then lastly, right now we're doing ministry midwife empowerment coaching. We just started that this year, 2019. And since January, we started on my birthday, January the 18th of 2019.
That's like a 6 weeks?
8 weeks. And we partner. We walk with women for 8 weeks, and the first 4 weeks, every woman is doing the exact same thing. There's papers to write. We have a weekly coaching call. Some are face-to-face, some aren't. But then the next half is where we branch off, and I begin to walk with you, and we begin to tailor-make an assignment for you. So some women come and say, hey, I need help in this area. I need help get my ministry off the ground. I've had women contact me, I need help being a better wife. Right. And so we kind of walk with them, and that second half. And 9 times out of 10, what I've seen happen in like that third or fourth week, God begins to kind of show me some areas. And sometimes we have to take a little backseat, if you will, to what you originally came for, because we have to get some things in order first. And so everything decent in order. So yeah, we've been blessed though. We've seen marriages, oh my God, marriages rekindled, father and daughter relationships rekindled, women starting their own ministry, being successful at starting ministries, and babies being born, spiritual babies. And so that's what we do. We push out that spiritual baby, yeah.
So how can people follow you, stay connected?
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I have an administrative assistant, so she has to help me with all these tags and hashtags and this and that. But on Instagram, it's at Ministry Midwife, and then I'm also on Facebook at Tammy Dozier, or Created for Destiny Ministries, or Tammy Dozier Unfinished. And I can also be reached by email, www.createdfordestinyministries@gmail.com. Yes, ma'am.
Well, there you have it from an overcomer. Thanks, Pastor Tammy, for sharing the
Yes,
platform.
absolutely.
And thanks for tuning into the Shon Brown Show.